I've been at Cisco for 14 years. My background is in computer electrical engineering, undergrad, master, and PhD. But I've been working in network management and services for the last 15 years. Cisco is about 40-something billion dollars a year. Services is about 10, 11 billion per year. There are cases where the customer demands Cisco to handle the service end-to-end. The hardware, the software, the deployment, the monitoring, and so on. And this is where Cisco came from. So that's one aspect of services. The other aspect, which Cisco doing very well with close to 75% margin, is what is called technical services. Those are the services sold on the top of the hardware. So we sell the hardware, then we attach the warranty, the guarantee, the 2 hours replacement or 4 hours replacement, depending if something happens in the network. Then consulting services, which is a new service start right now to help the customers with different type of consulting opportunities. The trend right now is to build on the capabilities that we need in the market on the top of the hardware. So Internet of Everything, as Cisco calls it, sometimes it's called Internet of Things outside, is one of the key area. And Cisco did a comprehensive study. They published the results. They believe this area is over $12 trillion between 2013 and 2022. It's a huge area, the Internet of Everything. And the idea is basically to connect everything, meaning people, cars, health care systems, jet engines, and so on, to the Internet. And many of those have been communicating back. For example, the GE or the Rolls-Royce jet engines have been communicating back with their manufacturers, but they've been communicating in a very vertical silos, expensive way over satellite, for example. So the idea now, let's go as cheap or as economical as possible using the IP protocols where the Internet is available and you could utilize it for these type of services, and build services on the top of the hardware and the devices which are part of the solution. So far, there are so many verticals, and each vertical have different set of requirements. So for example, healthcare, the IT to manage the healthcare over the Internet by itself is one vertical. Industrial internets, what GE is doing, or to bring the capabilities of the devices such as Caterpillar and John Deere, these type of companies into a data center and utilize that service is another vertical. Smart homes and smart energy is the third verticals. So the focus right now is to maybe look at those verticals, each one by themselves initially, to understand what are the key requirements in the service areas, then see what else is, or what type of capabilities we need to have in common across those verticals. So for example, the communications, what's called machine-to-machine communication, where devices communicate back if something happens, or to issue an alarm, for example. These capabilities could be generic across all verticals. So we're focusing on the verticals to understand the business needs, and we're also focusing on the common capabilities we need across the verticals in order to come up with a common technology that you could simply plug and play. So right now, the example I brought earlier actually in the discussion, right now each radio or TV stations have their own equipment. They have their own cars, their own cameras, their own environment. If something happens, they send a crew to the field and address it in that fashion. With the Internet of Things, I envision what I call everything as a service. So once they know there is some area they need to cover, let's say a major accident, then they could automatically in the cloud secure maybe a couple of driverless cars. The cars will go by themselves to the site of the accident, report on what's going on, utilizing the cloud capabilities and maybe the traffic information, and that would be the service. So they don't need to send anybody, and they do not need to plan earlier on in order to address such service. So the business aspect is the most important aspect. There's no question about it. In order to bring the value, because you cannot, for every service, go to the customer and ask him what is it he or she needs, right? I mean, you know, the Henry Ford famous say, if I ask the customer what is it they need, they say a faster horse. Because they could not envision the car back then. And the same thing repeats over and over again with the iPad, for example, when nobody thought the need for the iPad, which came out of Apple. So in order to do that, in order to come up with the service or the value of whatever capabilities you have, you need to understand what the capabilities are. So you need to have at least a high-level understanding of potentially the hardware, the technology, the value you're getting from the data. Then you could bring up that value and create the service on the top of it. So for the future, to prepare and get good jobs in the future economy, and it's not only the students, actually the same thing will apply for myself. If you want to survive in this environment, you really need to have a good understanding of where the industry is going as a whole from the service point of view. You need to understand where the technology is going, not the details. I'm not saying, well, out of the business school, you need to understand the bits and bytes and the protocols and all of that. Not necessarily to that level, but you need to understand the capabilities that you could achieve from the different technologies and solutions. Actually, in my presentation, I just listed the top 7 jobs, the top 2014 IT jobs, the most of which did not exist just several years ago. Exactly. And that's really, like social networking engineer, these type of positions that you don't even know what they mean. Unless you keep up with the technology and where the industry is going, you'll be obsolete very quickly. Learn as much as you can from school, but be open. Track what's going on. You could do that on your own. You could be part of conferences. IZIP is a good organization, izip.org, the service-based organization that Cisco, HP, and IBM formed together with several universities, because we keep updating our websites and what's going on and have conferences. So get involved. The question is get involved. Go to as many conferences as you can, to the meetings, follow up what's going on, and that's really the best way to grow.